Sports professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports, and you are on the record. A unique podcast, at least I hope so, that talks about the past 50 years, COVID, and the next 50 years of the sports business, where it's been, what the challenges were, and where it's going. And it started really 50 years ago. This is the first Miami Dolphin ticket ever for the old Miami Dolphins over 50 years ago. Less than $5 for this ticket. Average NFL revenues, less than $4 million at the time. If you're a baseball player, you're going to make about $26,000 at that time. And then George Steinbrenner sets the stage by buying the New York Yankees 50 years ago, $10 million. About 50 years after that, the industry was worth $1.3 trillion a year. Highly visible, highly controversial, and an industry worth watching. But yet, on March 11, 2020, the whole thing changes. Rudy Gobert tests positive for COVID, playing for the Jazz in Oklahoma City. Tire industry shuts down, losing $12 billion a week. How are you ever going to come back? Resilience, it did come back. And the roaring 20s in the 1900s, Yankee Stadium and otherwise, Spanish flu recovery gave way to a bigger and wider-ranging scale of recovery from COVID 100 years later. And look, the Yankees, obviously, $9-10 billion. Imagine Steinbrenner for $9-10 million. Steve Ross turns down an offer to buy the Miami Dolphins for $10 billion. Television revenues of the NFL, cumulative contracts, nearly $200 billion. NIL, nobody even knew what that was, now over $3 billion a year. And when you think about all of the numbers, it's a success after COVID because of three factors. One, survival of the fittest, uniqueness. Second of all, creativity in the context of taking the next step and standing out. And third, collaboration, cooperation, best practices. You put all of them together and you look at the next 50 years. Big challenges, Web 3.0, globalization. We're scared of AI. What are we going to do with it? NIL. Get the toothpaste back in the tube, for the metaphor. What about conference realignment? What about the franchise free agency, team free agency, player free agency, stadium development? All of that stuff, we need some defining and guiding moments. Well, luckily, this podcast can give you some of that perspective with some unparalleled cooperation with the Falk Institute of Sports at Syracuse University and the UNLV Global Sports Innovation Institute as well, along with the partnership that they had sponsoring the CCON Development Conference with USA Today. Came back from the conference, had some interesting perspective. The content is great, but the podcast will hopefully take some of the issues that have been raised by these partners and take them to the next level with some interviews that I hope you're going to like. And the bottom line is, hopefully you'll have a good time, and you may even learn something in the process. So sit, don't go anywhere. Every week, we will theme it around major events and a mega interview, and hopefully you'll be entertained and you might even learn something. Sports professor Rick Horrow, and you're on the record. Basketball season starting, and you're on the record with one of the seminal folks in the entire history of contract negotiation, sports law, and the NBA and college basketball, David Falk. We'll get into the opening drive and what's next in a minute. And one of the big issues is the combined increase in NBA salaries. The top players set to earn $1.13 billion this year, a 15% increase over last year and highest ever. Many say David Falk is primarily responsible for that. He's best known for being the longtime agent, NBA superstar Michael Jordan, represented other prominent NBA players, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Allen Iverson, and others. And the first $100 million contract in NBA history for Alonzo Mourning, and played a pivotal role in establishing lucrative shoe deals and endorsements for his clients. In 1972, he founded Fame, Falk Associates Management Enterprises, and Falk instrumental in creating and negotiating Michael Jordan's groundbreaking endorsement deal with Nike. He's written the book entitled The Ball Truth, Secrets and Success from the Locker Room to the Boardroom, graduated Syracuse, bleeds Syracuse orange and blue, caught up with him at the CCON conference in Vegas, co-hosted by Syracuse and UNLV. And he has, obviously, the entire chair and the program and his legacy named after him. And certainly the program, the entity, the university has David Falk to thank for innumerable benefits. Here is my friend and clearly mentor now, David Falk. Sports professor Rick Horrow into the $1.3 trillion business of sports. You know what? You know why it's $1.3 billion? It's $1.3 billion because this guy, 80%, 90% responsible for the $1.3 billion. David Falk, fame, we'll talk about it more. Is that correct? You're responsible for about 80% of all the revenues generated in the business? What do you think?
I doubt it, but I really enjoyed being there at the critical time when this thing was really starting to break out in the early 80s.
Well, when it broke out in the early 80s, you had the visionary thought to break it out even farther. Talk about the business and what caused you to start Fame.
So I went to work for free in 1974 when I was still in law school at George Washington University. I always wanted to be a lawyer and I always wanted to be in sports, but I didn't have the pedigree to get a job. And so I worked for free all summer, and then I worked the whole third year for $5 an hour. And then at the end of my third year of law school, I graduated. They gave me a job. My starting salary was $13,000. I was making less than the secretaries. Yeah. I can't say over 17 years that it got much better than that, but I love what I was doing, so the money didn't motivate me. And over a very short period of time, between 1982 and 1986, I had the very special honor of representing James Worthy, the #1 pick, Michael Jordan, Boomer Esiason in football, Patrick Ewing, Chris Dolman, the 5th highest sacker in NFL history, Johnny Dawkins, the National Player of the Year, John Thompson, Coach K. If that had been my entire career, I'd be, in heaven. And so it really started to take off. And in my early 30s, the pressure of representing the best and the brightest in the world really forces you to try to do different things, to try to treat each player individually, because like Michael and Patrick going back to back, when I went to Nike in 1985 to talk about Patrick, my friend Rob Strasser, who did the Jordan deal with me, said to me, let me guess, Air Ewing. And I said, Air Ewing? Michael plays in the air, Patrick plays on the ground. He's the infantry. We're going to call his shoe the Force. And Nike ended up with 2 lines, Flight and Force, Flight for Flyers. And so each guy had to have something really different, and it really challenges your creativity to be on a par in business with your clients who are setting the trend on the floor.
Hundreds of people say they're agents. Any guy who has an athlete who calls himself an agent, that was Bob Wool's favorite line, can call him an agent. But when you have the trust of somebody and then you apply your Falkian creativity to it, it's an amazing combination. In that context, talk about Air Jordan.
So the breakthrough deal was pre-Jordan, was James Worthy. In 1982, James Worthy got the highest deal in the history of the NBA. Now think about this, he's playing for the Lakers. He's the #3 guy at best behind Kareem and Magic, but he's the highest paid player in the year in the league. And so when Jordan came out, I wanted to really do something different. And having been the junior agent for Arthur Ashe and Stan Smith for 10 years already, I really thought that no one knew Mike would be the GOAT. No one, his parents didn't know, Coach Smith didn't know, and Michael sort of didn't know. But I knew he'd be really exciting, having watched him in the Olympics in Los Angeles in 1984. And I told all the companies, I want you to treat him like he's a tennis player. I want you to give him his own line. And most of them looked at me like I was really dumb. They said, David, the guy hasn't done anything in the NBA. He has no pedigree, he's got no track record. No one has that. Bird doesn't have that, Magic doesn't have that, Doctor. That will never work. And so, year 1 at Nike, Air Jordan sold $126 million. They outsold every basketball company in the world. And I give Rob Strasser a lot of credit because we had a very special friendship. It took a great relationship, as you're discussing, Rick, in order for him to trust that this would work. And the most important part of Jordan's deal is I put a clause at the very end. The first 6 months of the deal, they had to spend $1 million promoting him. around the country. Today, that'd be like 100 million, at least, maybe more. And that really jump-started his entire marketing program with Coca-Cola, Chevrolet, because he had a commercial October of his rookie year before the season even started.
How hard was it to constantly wake up every day and say, here's X, I'm going to break the mold, I'm going to push through this, people don't understand this is important, but I'm going to figure it out because it's right. Nobody has thought like you have over time, and it's incredible what you've done in the business, but it's got to be mentally taxing to wake up every morning and say, oh my God, here we go again.
Yeah, I really never even, I never really thought about it. What I thought after doing this, so Michael came along in my 10th year in the business, I developed sort of a philosophy that if you do it the same way every time, it's like being a great plumber. And your drain gets stuck, you say, I'm going to call David Falk, he's the world's greatest plumber. Yeah. I want to be an artist, I wanted to do it different. And so the sort of came from inside. It wasn't so much the pressure from the players, it was my desire to show them that they made a good decision picking me, that I was going to give it everything I had. And it wasn't like I was trying to break the mold, but I definitely wanted to be creative. And when people were afraid to make changes, they said it will never work, that motivated me more than anything else to prove that they were wrong.
Drain stopped up, F-A-L-K. How's that? You like that? F-A-L-K. So, next business. You don't need another business, I guarantee you. So, finally, and maybe most important given this, CCon, Sports Entertainment, Innovation, incredible brainstorming, UNLV, Jay Vickers, you put this together, 2 years, 48 panels, 200 speakers. It's an amazing project and process. From your perspective with this conference, what do you think the potential is for this?
Well, first of all, I think you can go to multiple cities. Yeah. And I want to give credit. It wasn't me and Jay, it was Sean and Jay.
Absolutely.
Sean Garrity did an amazing job, put a lot of effort into the thing, and it's it's a tremendous compliment to the two programs. And I think that, if you have a great program, you shouldn't be afraid to share it with someone else. So we think there's going to be a lot of cross-pollination between what Jay's done at UNLV and what we're doing at Falk College in Syracuse. And we hope to have this, that we have close to 800 people there, which is a testament to their, how hard they worked and how creative they've been and bringing people like Todd Krinsky and David Levy, who ran Turner Broadcast. The speakers are incredible. And so I think that people realize this is a very unique conference. And I could see this becoming a franchise over the next 10 years.
Your mouth to God's ears. It's going to be incredible philanthropic human being, incredible agent, incredible friend, master plumber, David Falk.
So you didn't have that in my resume.
No, I got it now. Sports professor Rick Horrow, speak with you soon. David Falk, incredible perspective on and off the basketball court. A challenge right now. We've talked about it. This is not a shock. We're going to see what his golf game is like in the coming years. He deserves to be good at everything he does, and that's one thing. But let's talk about the opening drive for this week, as we usually have, just back from Uzbekistan. Number one, the NBA's highest paid players revealed. We talked earlier about David Falk and what he's meant to the legacy and the $1.13 billion in salaries and endorsements. By the way, up 11% last year. And who's number one and number two? Steph Curry and LeBron James, respectively, usually flip-flops. Curry, $155 million, James, $133 million. But the bottom line is these two clearly on the top of the pack. 5 straight gold medals, a streak by the U.S. team. But 6 MVP awards and 16 NBA Finals appearances with those two. What an incredible number. The top 5, the Greek Freak at 103, Kevin Durant at 97, Damian Lillard at 66, and Steph Curry alone. Remember the David Falk legacy we talked about, not only Under Armour, but USA Sports Marketing, Panini, Rakuten, Callaway, JP Morgan Chase, Simplicity, Fanatics, obviously another entities with unanimous media. He is a golf television personality. He's a TV producer and certainly very, very significant in the business and will continue to be, as well as all these other players. That's number one. Number two, World Series, incredible series, ratings-wise, incredible drama. He's in the first 2 games. Incredible Freddie Freeman. Maybe Kirk Gibson and Freeman for the most iconic issues. In any event, baseball at about a $12 billion number. Fanatics has produced over 50 separate World Series trinkets and products. The Rays need a home. The A's are just about getting one. Japan with 15 million additional viewers because of Ohtani. Remember last year we were talking about whether the short-term fixes would work, the pitch clock, the shorter games. Not only are they working, but we're moved on to greater things. Yeah, it's working, but now we talk about dramatic series, labor peace, and on and on and on. Baseball, fantastic. That's number two. Number three, kudos to Jeff Vinnick. The 65-year-old forms a board of directors with Mark Lifschultz and Doug Ostrover, and they buy controlling interest of the team, a little over 50%, from Vinnick at a value of $1.8 billion. He keeps control for 3 years during a transition. By the way, he bought the team for $170 million in 2010, and what does he do? He wins cups in 2021. He goes back-to-back 11 times in 14 seasons, goes to the playoffs, and he clearly deserves what he gets. Tremendous accolade, stays with the team, develops the contiguous real estate, and Ostrover and Lifschultz together, one is worth about $2.3 billion, reportedly the other $3.2. And the issue is when you're spending $1.8 billion for a team, and it's so much of a percentage of your net worth, even though it's spread out over bankers and investment and the like, it shows the benefits of a significant and sustained and credible investment. And the NHL is such an investment, and the Lightning is such an investment as well. Kudos to Gary Bettman as well as the Lightning. Number four, tradition versus profit. We're coming up on the greatest cocktail party in history, the Gators and the traditional perennial contenders, the Bulldogs. $3.35 million of economic activity for the Florida-Georgia game in Jacksonville at Alltel. Through 2025, the game is committed, but we're not sure what happens. They started the game in 1933 in Jacks. They've got to renew, and with the new stadium renovations and the new real estate with Shad Khan developing it, it is just a question of whether, and not whether, but when. The guaranteed payout today is $3.8 million. The ticket split among the teams, plus a guarantee. But because of NIL and the economics of the sport, they may need more than that guarantee. And they're even talking about $2 million apiece. So the deal's not done yet, but Jacksonville needs the two of them. And I would say the two of them need the history, legacy, and tradition of that game. See how it all shakes out. That's number four. And finally, number five, Michael Jordan and NASCAR elevate their feud with some briefs. By the way, lawyers are great with this. They're getting paid a lot of money. The stakes are very high. CEO Jim France is called by Jeffrey Kessler and Winston & Strawn a monopolistic bully in the pleadings. And Kessler is conducting a, quote, master class in contradiction. The deals involve the franchise purchases that are take it or leave it. And NASCAR says it's our sport effectively. And the entities say the prices are not right. It's illegal. Kessler convinced the U.S. Supreme Court 9-0 to rule in his favor in Alston, where college athletes can get paid. So he brings a pretty credible stick to this. Judge Frank D. Whitney, the district court judge, talks about the continuation of this lawsuit and allowing these two to enter as free agents in these races, or do they have to wait until the lawsuit is resolved? Big stakes, big process. That's going backwards, the opening drive. Now let's look at the 5 to watch for next week or the week after. Number 1, Endeavor. They're looking at buying the Miami Open and the Madrid Open. The tennis programs that seem to be tournaments that seem to be making a lot of money. Remember that Endeavor, a master at the development of public and private, taking it public, going private. They had high sports, high entertainment assets and maneuvered them to the subsidiary TKO group, the mixed martial arts promotion UFC, professional wrestling company WWE, merging the ownership company. The $3.25 billion all-equity purchase sees IMG, events and hospitality firm, on location, and the bull riding tournament competition, PBR, taken under the TKO Group umbrella. More to come. Will the deal be done this year as far as the two tennis tournaments? We'll just have to see. Next, number two, looking forward to the next year. The Packers look to implement dueling press conferences, but positive ones. Packers do a Lambeau renovation 20 years ago, have a 2032 expiration, 5 2-year options to extend the lease, and they're going to do it. The money for an additional term on it is mixed with the 2% $2 million a year deal, but then the escalator of 2.75% over 30 years, starting at about $1 million. In return, $1.58 billion renovation, private-public partnership. The Packers taking the lead when we did it and brought all the games from Milwaukee northward to Green Bay. Significant public money. Lambeau is viewed by all polls in Brown County and otherwise as a museum, not just a football stadium. So it's incredibly unique, and this will continue it. Next, Angel Reese, a deal. She, according to the head of basketball, Joey Odafiso, says the company will do a ground-up build of Reese's signature shoe line, joining the Liberties forward Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Aces Asia Wilson, and Fever Caitlin Clark. Nike as women who have earned and are getting large, lucrative shoe deals. And again, we go back to David Falk. His legacy is not just male athletes, but everyone. The bottom line is the WNBA, look at their numbers, and maybe the unintended consequence of the WNBA is creating these superstars with growing commitments both on and off the court. As number 8, let's look at number 9, India, $139 million across 29 deals between 2014 and 2022. But now they're looking at the number of their population and increase in esports, sports tech ecosystem, and India's relationship with esports expected to reach $3.5 billion by 2027. And that's number 9. You got to watch India making a major commitment, not just in Olympics, but in major sports. And esports may be one of their quickest ways in. And finally, number 10, we're going to couple that, looking forward, with Singapore. Campus Game Fest has announced a return to Singapore following a 5-year hiatus, the importance of esports education, alongside hosting a range of College Central, along with campus legends involving the tournament with mobile legends all across Singapore, their public subsidy, and their ability to embrace esports as an economic indicator and growth for sports long term. Tournament organizer Blast also announced it'll be hosting events in Singapore 2024 and 2025. Clearly, esports the way in. Saudi, a tremendous investment. We just talked about India, Singapore. The Olympics, probably not 2028, but it can't be that far away. Well, those are our 5 to watch and our 5 from before, and it all focuses on David Falk. We'd like to thank him for giving his time at the CCON conference, as well as the interview that we did. And thank Khaled Kazire for helping us put this together. Thank you all for listening and watching, and join us once again when we go on the record. Sports Professor, $1.3 trillion business of sports. See you soon.